Coach. Hey, thanks for joining me today on this Simple Coach to Coach interview. Got the Mount Union connection going, but wait. You know, I did a video that I did yesterday, which I called my top 11 theories, and my number one theory was on the college university bookstore industrial complex, where it costs a lot of money to buy hats at some schools. Well, just so happens our alma mater, Mount Union, they have a connection with Barnes & Noble, and wouldn't you know, buying a hat there can be quite expensive, although Coach Krems was kind enough to send me this one. But University of Wisconsin-Platteville is not. And I picked up this lovely one for $20, and it is fantastic. So, anyhow, thank you very much for joining me today. What a rough start. What a rough start. It gets better, I promise you. Hey, all right, so let's just jump right into it. All right, so if I saw this correctly, this is your third year at Platteville. So that would put you're a COVID baby. So you moved at COVID or just before COVID. Did I get that right?
So it'll be my third season with the program. I arrived kind of on the back end of COVID. Okay. So right in the summer of 2021, and that was my first season with the team as the assistant coach.
Okay. Let me ask you, what's your experience, your soccer journey been like, and how did you end up in the chair you're currently sitting in?
Yeah, sure. So I'm originally from out east, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania is where I grew up. Played high school soccer, played club soccer locally, and then, upon graduating high school, I went to the University of Mount Union for 4.5 years. I stayed for an extra semester. I got hurt right before my senior year, and I opted to stay and use a full year of eligibility. And then after graduating from Mount Union, I moved back to Pittsburgh. I was kind of working like a 9-to-5 corporate job. I was coaching club at B-Link Soccer Club, which is where I played growing up. And then about 2.5 years later, I saw an opening here at UW-Platteville, and I kind of applied, jumped through the hoops, and I've kind of been here ever since. So in the last, I think it was like 4 or 5 months ago now, I was appointed the head coach. So, I'm loving it.
That's awesome. Obviously, Mount Union, awesome. So let me ask you, I mean, it's amazing what a 9-to-5 job does for you, right? And it focuses the mind, whether it's on the job or into something else you realize is better. But, I mean, so you got out of school and you didn't really was coaching on your radar? At least being a college coach on your radar?
I kind of always knew I wanted to get back into the game, but I kind of, I was a double major at Mount Union, so I kind of wanted to use my degrees for a little bit and kind of just solidify myself a little bit, and then kind of get my feet wet with kind of club coaching for a little bit. And then after a while, I just kind of got the urge to I want to do this full time. I kind of want to make this, career, and that's when I made the jump.
Yeah. So I do have to ask you, since I knew a lot of guys from Pittsburgh, because that Pittsburgh area, Swickley and all around, like just some great soccer talent just sort of comes from that area. I'm curious, and then your experience in Ohio, and then now up in Wisconsin. Do you see differences between players that are like a Pennsylvania player versus an Ohio player versus a Wisconsin player?
Yeah, it's a good question. I watch a lot of your other interviews. I'm always curious to see what the other coaches think. And I think I haven't been doing this maybe as long as some of them. Mm-hmm. I think there's certainly pockets of players everywhere you go across the country where, some are more ball playing, some are more kind of focused on athleticism. Mm-hmm. I think Wisconsin's a little bit more athleticism based, just for my 2-3 years being here. Regarding like Ohio, kind of Western PA, I think it's pretty similar, where it's kind of a mix where there's certainly like technical players who love to keep the ball on the ground, but there's also guys who are big, athletic, and strong, and just tough to play against in that regard. But
Yeah.
I think anywhere you go, really, you're going to find multitudes of different players and different
Yeah.
styles.
There's plenty of meat and potato type players, right? That just
Yeah.
they're they know what the ball is and they go through anybody to get to it, right? Like I just think that's a reality we experience. But it's always something I'm curious about. One of the other things that I've been theorizing about is just I think it's really important to accentuate those differences because I think it's healthy for us, and it's a good soccer thing. But hey, maybe you could touch because I think just gonna look here really quick before I open my mouth and say something. Soccer, where'd you go? Can you talk about your conference a little bit, the competition? Who you play, who's good. I have some notions about it, but yeah, I'd be curious to get your input on that.
Yeah, sure. So it's a very unique situation for us regarding our conference. So every other program here, men's and women's at UW-Platteville participates in the WIAC.
Mm-hmm.
We're the only program that doesn't men's soccer. So our women's team does participate in it. We do not. So we're in the Coast to Coast Conference. So as the name would suggest, the teams are from the West Coast, the East Coast, and everywhere in between.
Mm-hmm.
In our conference, we actually don't really play anyone in the regular season. We play one team, UW Whitewater.
Yeah.
And how the conference works is we actually travel to the host team every year. So, for example, last season it was Salisbury, so we flew out to Salisbury, Maryland, and played in a knockout conference tournament. So, and it's also unique in regard that the rankings, the seeding is based on Massey rankings, which is a long, complicated algorithm that I haven't been able to crack yet, but it basically ranks you, per its criteria. I think we were the third or fourth seed this past season, but basically you play a quarterfinal, semifinal, and then there's a day off, and then if you made it that far, you play in the final, which is a Sunday, and it's usually at like 10 or 9 a.m. Eastern time, so it's just different, right, compared to the traditional like OAC or other conferences. But it's a lot of fun. I think in the next maybe year or two we will probably move back to the WIAC. It's not, I don't think, necessarily official yet, but there have been programs opening up like Stout and Stevens Point, so I think we're starting to lean towards that way.
Was there a reason? I mean, did you do the coast to coast because there were fewer schools that soccer school, or that the conference I don't think even has the Wisconsin I don't even think it has men's soccer in conference, do they?
For the WIAC, no, there's no men's soccer conference. That's why we do participate in the coast to coast, just to give us another avenue to qualify for the NCAA tournament.
Yeah. Because I saw who just was it River Falls is starting soccer, and I don't know who else, but yeah. Oh, okay. Curious. I was wondering about that. But the coast to coast, I mean, that's fun. I kind of like that setup. I think that's the coolest of all. So you play whoever you want. You build your strength of schedule however you need it, and then you get to travel somewhere.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun, and a lot of the pitch kind of we use in recruiting is not many other teams fly to their conference tournament.
Yeah.
Our conference is, it's very, very tough, very, very difficult with, Christopher Newport, Mary Washington, Salisbury, Whitewater, and others. So it's not an easy conference to win. And I think this past season, our program and then Mary Washington and Christopher Newport all went to the NCAA tournament. And Mary Washington, I think, was a Final Four team.
Final Four, yeah.
Very, very difficult to win and compete in.
Yeah. No, this is not. You're not doing a conference because it's easy, because it's not. Like the teams you mentioned, and obviously, Mary Wash did. I mean, outstanding. But okay, so I do have. So where do you This is the other thing I'm curious about now, recruiting. Do you because you're a Wisconsin school, like University of Wisconsin school, do you recruit mostly Wisconsin, or are you sort of further out? Are you expand? I don't want to say expanding, but do you recruit nationally, or how does that work for you?
Yeah, predominantly we're Midwest based. I think of our roster, I would say like Illinois and Wisconsin are the two bigger states that we probably pull most of our players from.
Mm-hmm.
This incoming class is very Illinois heavy, specifically like the Naperville, Illinois, Plainfield area. So we're drawing a lot of kids. But we certainly try to pull kids from Madison, Wisconsin, Milwaukee, kind of bigger cities in Wisconsin. And we also have a few guys from Minnesota, a couple guys from Iowa, and then we have a few outliers. We have a player from Alabama, a player from Texas. So we've tried to kind of maybe test the waters kind of with national recruiting. It is difficult, I think, for us, for some reasons. But our bread and butter is kind of Midwestern, kind of
Yeah.
Illinois, Wisconsin, particularly.
Like what sort of tournament? What do you go to tournaments at all? Do you do any of the like the ECNL tournaments, regional tournaments?
We do a we did one ECNL tournament. We were down in St. Louis back around like the holiday time frame.
Mm-hmm.
They had a showcase. We do. I mean, we'll go to showcases. We'll go to tournaments. We'll go to a few high school games. We try to hit all the big ones, kind of in the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
We've been to Blue Chip in the past. It's a bit of a hike for us, but we've done it. But anything that we think, we have players that are our level and that we could get, we're usually at those events.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just pulling up your campus map. I don't know why, but I just decided to pull that up. All right, so let's. Not going to say anything other than somebody asks you, how did your past season go? Now, you were the assistant, correct? Yeah.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah. How do you think it went from your position as an assistant coach?
Sure. I think, at the beginning of the season or prior to that even, we kind of made, team goals. We sat down with the leaders of the team and kind of just discussed, where we think we should be finishing. And our goal last season was to make the NCAA tournament, which we accomplished. However, we're not really satisfied because we obviously went out in the first round, unfortunately. So I think in terms of if you want to check the box, we reached our goal, we accomplished that, then yes, it was successful. But myself, the rest of the staff, the players obviously want to go as far as possible. So it was a little bit of a letdown, but at the end of the day, we did accomplish our goal and what we kind of set out to do. So I think that's that kind of says a lot about our team. Kind of the guys aren't necessarily satisfied with just that. So, next season we're going to, try again, make the tournament, and hopefully make a bit of a run, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So for everyone watching, 12-5-3 for the season. And I will say, just looking at your schedule, who you lost to are legit. Like, they were legit programs. MSOE, Eau Claire, St. Olaf, Whitewater. I can't believe you lost to Whitewater and St. John's with your Mount Union background, but that's okay. But no, my point is I mean, you're playing teams that can play, like that have a pedigree, right? And doing as well as you did at the 12-5-3 is pretty remarkable. I got to ask you something about just sort of overall culture and sort of what you're doing as a new coach. I mean, is there... All right, I asked this question. It's a little weird, but bear with me. Were you hired with a purpose, or was it... I mean, a purpose meaning were they just looking for the soccer coach? Are they looking for you to do something in particular with the program? Is it, look, hey, you're at a level, we want you to go higher now? I'm just curious about that. That's the weird question.
It's a fair question. I think kind of when I was in the interview process and kind of going through that, I think one of the things that I think why I was chosen, obviously I've been on staff for 2 seasons. I know the players, I know kind of the administrative duties, I know all of that. I think we've been trending in kind of an upward, the right direction for the past 2, 3 years. I think the previous coach, Sam Koenig, did a great job, and I think they kind of wanted me to just keep kind of building off of that because again, we are, since he arrived, we've been kind of, I think they were like around 500, and then we had 12 wins, and then we had another 12-win season, made the tournament. We have a really young team with a lot of bright guys, and we have a lot of good guys coming in. So I think they just kind of wanted someone that would, carry the momentum. We didn't lose any commits or really recruits kind of in the coaching change, I think, which was huge for us.
Right.
So I think that was kind of the purpose because there wasn't really a need to, necessarily rebuild, if you want to use that word. We didn't graduate a ton of guys. So I think they just wanted someone that they know and trust to just kind of keep us going in the right direction. Of course, we want to maintain, but also improve on the previous years. So that's what we're going to try to do here in this upcoming fall season.
How much have you done to sort of put your own stamp on things? I mean, was there anything? I always call them new. Like, are you doing anything new or that the team would think is new, or was it to a certain extent, hey, we're just going to keep doing what we're doing. You got the cadence down. The guys know the rhythm of the program. I mean, was there anything that you're trying to tweak or add to?
I think culturally it's pretty similar. I think myself and the previous head coach had pretty similar vision in that regard. I think the way we train and the way we play is probably the biggest change. We will play a little bit differently offensively and defensively. I think the spring was a great way to start kind of installing that and kind of going over that and talk about what we want to do, how we want to do it, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. I would say that's probably the biggest change moving forward. So again, that's what the spring was for, kind of getting guys, maybe changing some positions around, maybe changing just some tendencies, things like that to get us ready for the fall.
Yeah. Well, let me jump to that. Like how big of a deal is it for you to have a very focused fall? Meaning, I have this theory that really good programs use the fall as the springboard, or the spring as the, I hate that word, springboard to the fall. I mean, is that the way you guys look at it, or is it just sort of like an opportunity to work together for 5 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it is now?
Yeah, the spring we take very, very seriously. When I was a player at Mount Union, Carter Poe, who was my head coach, took it very seriously. So I think that's kind of where I get it from.
Yep.
But obviously, as a Division III institution, we're limited in terms of when the coaching staff can actually coach and manage training sessions. And our guys have been absolutely great about going to our turf field or going into our field house and playing small sided any chance they can. We have racquetball courts in our athletic facility where the guys can go in and just knock the ball off the wall for 30 minutes, get a sweat, get a ton of touches, that sort of thing. And then for myself and the staff, when it is time for us to do training sessions, we try to make sure that we're getting the most of them. So we trained anywhere from, I'd say, 90 minutes to 2 hours every training session, just because again we're trying to implement new things, we're trying to hash out and kind of sharpen some other things as well. So I think it made me feel a lot more comfortable. I think, I always wonder how coaches do it just starting for a fall season because, I think the spring just helps you prepare so much. I think that would give me a panic attack if I just took it for, 2 weeks before season started because I don't know how they do that. Yeah. But now I think everyone kind of knows the expectations, the standards on the field, off the field. So kind of it's going to make the fall, hopefully, fingers crossed, a much smoother transition. Yeah. Hopefully, we'll see.
Knock on. Right, we're knocking. Yeah. Right, we're knocking. Hey, that has your relationship with your players changed now that you're the head coach? Because I don't know if this is a rule or not. Maybe it's like the assistant coach is always the assistant coaches that I've worked with, I was a little bit closer to the team than the head coach. I'm just wondering, is that something you're noticing or experiencing on, now that you went from the assistant to the head coach?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think, the relationships have changed a little bit. I think, I always think, everyone always loves the assistant coach, right? It's always the head coach that has to get the grief and
Yeah.
and get the negative feedback or whatever. But um, I've tried to be intentional about just, I think my first meeting with the guys, I just told them, I'm the head coach. You guys need to respect that, or else this isn't going to work. But I think even prior as the assistant coach, it was a very friendly, like I have a good connection with the guys, but it was also professional. So I think me maintaining that and then just kind of building off that has kind of helped. So I think that's kind of, again, set it up to make sure it's a pretty smooth transition. But I think the guys, they get it. Again, it goes back to me just having the spring, having, the kind of the back end of our spring semester to just kind of, draw the line so everyone knows where to be. So again, when everyone shows up here in, 20 days or so, everyone kind of knows what to expect from me as the head coach.
Jeez, 20. When do you start?
August 16th we'll start.
Jeez almighty. Wow. I can't believe it. Time flies when it flies, like holy smokes. Back to the season. Was there any point during the season where you're like, hey, these guys got it together and I think we can do, I think we can do things? Does that make sense? Right. Sometimes you get to a point in the season where you're like, well, the best thing would be that it would end, right? Like in the extreme. And then some folks are like, oh my gosh, we got something special here. We can really go. I mean, did you have any moments like that this past season?
Yeah, I think there's two games that kind of come to mind. So since I've been here, the first two seasons we've started 0-2. So we've started, having to claw back, had to fight our way back. So this year, lost to MSOE, lost to Eau Claire, and then, it's kind of, our backs are against the wall for a little bit, and we kind of had to think about things and reevaluate. But both seasons after we've went 0-2, we went on, like a 10-game run of being unbeaten, and that's what we did this past year. I think a game in particular I think about is when we won against Luther on the road. I believe they were top 25 at the time.
They were good.
So good. Yeah. And great program. They have great players. They play a very attractive brand of soccer, and to go there and get a result that we needed, I think that kind of, made us realize that, okay, this team is, could be special. Like, we could, possibly do something. We might be able to make the tournament. And I think us too, we were a young team last year, and we were a young team the year before that. So I think this will be the first season since I've been here, at least, where we have predominantly more upperclassmen as opposed to underclassmen, which I think helps, just having that experience, having guys that have been there and done that. But those two moments are what I think about last season, where I think, okay, this team, I think does have what it takes to kind of reach our goals, which was to make the NCAA tournament.
Wow, you only had 3 seniors and like an army of freshmen, and then a smaller army of sophomores and 2 juniors. Wow, you are young. That is really young.
I think we were the youngest team. If not, we were one of the youngest teams in the NCAA tournament as well. Yeah. That based off my unofficial research, so I can't say that's a fact, but when you compare us to most teams, we were young.
I do the same sort of thing, and then I hold it as fact. So don't worry, you hold to that until somebody tells me otherwise. No, but I'm serious. I haven't seen it this dramatic before. I'm trying to think. There's usually some more seniors or grads, or a definitely higher number of juniors. That's odd. I mean, I hate to say, like, what was your class before this year? Did you graduate many 2 years ago?
2 years ago, no. I think we graduated. I think it was three players, to be honest with you. So it's, again, like I said, since I've been here, it's been, we lose 3 or 4 guys that were seniors, and that's just kind of how it's been. So
yeah.
This upcoming year, we'll lose another 4 or 5, maybe 6, depending on COVID years, but it'll be similar.
Yeah. Do you guys have a grad school? Is there a grad school through Platteville? Could somebody come and do their grad work there? Yeah,
we have several graduate degrees, grad programs here at Platteville, which helps. But that is something that we offer.
Yeah. Do you? I mean, I ask because is that? I mean, are you looking at grad student, like, since you got guys with eligibility or are looking for grad school. I mean, do you play that game at all, or no?
We do. I think, we're kind of on the back end, I guess, of the COVID eligibility. So we
Yeah,
have some
yeah.
guys that are kind of considering that route. And then we actually had
Mm,
a player this past season who transferred from another Division III school
mm,
to, I believe his school didn't have, a graduate program, and we
right,
did. So we made the transfer kind of just to finish up with some grad degree work, and then
right.
obviously play soccer for us. So
Yeah,
we do play it if it's something that a recruit or someone like that's looking for it.
yeah.
So it is always nice to just have it available.
Yeah. That's I get that the COVID thing, but it is right. Like I think it's more of a COVID sort of I think drove it right. Where I think unless the NCAA changes any rules, I think transferring becomes a very real option for folks for whatever reason. Like hey, my senior year, I can, I've done all my coursework. I can sort of jump into being a grad school and still have a little bit of season of eligibility. But what was there anything that surprised you this past? I'm going to change that up. Is there anything that surprised you from the team when you told them they found out that you were going to be the head coach? Did anything surprise you, good, bad, or not?
I would say there wasn't necessarily anything that caught me off guard. The players when the process was going on, I know a lot of the guys kind of were pushing for me to kind of get it because
Mm-hmm.
again I've been here for a couple of years and I've had a good relationship with the players. I think I guess what surprised me the most, and again, knock on wood here, but the transition just from because I was appointed right before we started our spring season.
Right.
I think I was appointed, then 2 or 3 days later we were on on our turf field training for our spring
Yeah.
season. So I think in that short amount of time, we didn't lose anything. Like we didn't lose any steam. Like everyone worked hard. Everyone pretty much bought in right away to kind of what I was trying to get across them in terms of
Right.
what we're going to do and kind of the standards being set by myself and the rest of the staff.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I was very lucky, very fortunate.
Yeah.
But I think that just me being around and kind of being a familiar face kind of played a part in that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm always curious about that. I mean, that's it's a really interesting transition, and I don't get a chance to speak to former assistants who are just become the head coach, and so that gets my my thoughts going as if I need any help with that. Was there anything that Pat this last? I'll change this one too. In this transition, did you experience anything that was challenging for you that might have you don't think would have been the case had you not made this or had you not got the head coaching position?
I think there's always challenges. I think one of the biggest ones is just is scheduling. So I've kind of obviously had to spearhead that now as the head coach. I think our conference plays a part in that. So it's always so difficult to find games to play like October when everyone's in their conference.
Yeah,
Because we don't really play anyone from our conference other than the Whitewater.
yeah,
So it's tough to just find teams that are going to help our strength of schedule, help us,
yeah,
get us numbers we need to make the NCAA tournament if we were able to get an at-large bid. And then it's tough to just find a day and time for them to agree to play us.
yeah.
So I
That's a
think
good point.
that's where I lose sleep at night is kind of
Mm-hmm.
figuring out that way because I want to put our guys in the best position possible to make the
Yeah,
tournament. And to do that, you need to play the best teams in the region.
yeah.
And the best teams in the region don't always want to play a game in the middle of October, and I can't really
No,
blame them.
no,
you know,
yeah,
when I was
yeah,
playing at Mount Union, if we're preparing for Marietta, John Carroll, whoever, I really don't want to be going down to
yeah,
Geneva to play a game,
yeah.
right?
That's very true, though.
So
Like
I
it's
get it.
yeah. You're knee deep, and your focus is on the task at hand. If you're that team, and that's just noise. Playing out a conference ends up being for a lot of guys noise. Maybe not so much for the elite of the elite that they're already playing like a really tough schedule, and everything sort of rolls for them, and they could do that. But the teams that are fighting, they're still in the hunt for things, and they're like that's not a distraction that a lot of folks, and somebody gets hurt, like all that stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, but having said that, I do love the makeup of the coast to coast. Like, how awesome is that? Like, I mean, it gives you a lot more. In some respects, gives you just a lot more flexibility as to how, for your own outcome, right? Like, you get to, strength of schedule is where you get nipped at the end of the season because it's not strong enough. That's your own fault. Like right, like it's okay. Who did you schedule, right? Like I think that's really interesting. That's really interesting. Makes me think we should all ditch conferences and everybody should just play. Anyhow, that's not a theory. That's not a theory. Hey, you did have 3 of them. I mean, do you like no overtimes during the regular season, or do you prefer overtimes? This is just my unofficial, non-counted poll question.
Yeah, I go back and forth. I tend to lean towards bringing back overtime or having overtime. I completely understand, you want to, maintain the safety of the players, but I always think back to, when I was playing at Mount Union, we played in a lot of overtime games, and I survived. It's doable.
Yeah, you're talking to me today, so yeah, you lived. Yep.
So I think I also like kind of the dramatics, right? It's a very American thing, overtime,
Yeah.
and I don't mind that at all. But it is what it is. So whether there's overtime or not overtime, we'll adjust. I'm not too passionate about either way. But if I had to decide, I'd probably bring back overtime,
Yeah.
just because teams are going to play for a draw, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that in my opinion. But it just makes it harder for us to win potentially, which I don't like. So it is what it is, though.
What the 3 games that you had that were ties were those like games where you're like, I need 5 more minutes and we win, or were they, hey, 5 more minutes and we lose? I'm just curious. That's pure.
Yeah, it's I don't know if I can speculate. I think St. John's we tied. We scored late in there, so we had the momentum. But to say we would win, I don't know if I can justify that. I would hope we'd win. And I think Wartburg was another one, and I remember Wartburg could have like put us away in the last like 2 or 3 minutes, and gave me a heart attack. But we could have won that game potentially. I think the last tie we technically tied Salisbury. We went into PKs and lost, unfortunately. But I think maybe that game.
That was for the tournament, right? The Coast to Coast tour. Oh, okay.
Correct. Yeah, I remember that game. Both teams were just tired. It was a hot day.
Yeah.
Again, maybe we could have mustered something. I think we had a little bit more of the ball and created a little bit more chances, but they were just as dangerous on the day. So I really couldn't pick and choose.
Hey, I'm just curious. Like, how do you describe the way you like to play? I'm asking you that really because I never hate to say it. It's not hate to say it, but you got on the radar because of your Mount Union connection, and that didn't happen until this fall when I first reached out to you. So I didn't get to watch any of your games, which now I'm going to, which is sometimes not a good thing. But I'm just where was I going with that? I forget where I was going with that. That was
Style
terrible.
Play?
Style of play. Like, how would you? Thank you. I'm going to send you this mic, and you just do the interviews for me going forward. Where did you? What is it? How would you describe how you like to play? Or snap your fingers, your not Thanos, but you snap your fingers. Platteville's going to walk out onto the field and play a certain way. How would that certain way be?
Well, if I could snap my fingers, I guess, and we could play any way I wanted, we'd probably play, the proper way, the attractive way, ball on the ground. We'll ping it around. We'll try to break teams down, that sort of thing. However, that's not necessarily the case, right? We have Division III soccer players who are great, but I think sometimes, at least for me, I'm not necessarily loyal to any style of play, any formation, anything tactically. I'm more of a coach that kind of focuses on what they have or what they can potentially bring in from a recruit standpoint, and we kind of create the best way for us to win games from there, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, what I kind of anticipate for the fall, we'll be very, very disciplined defensively, very, very hardworking, blue collar kind of mindset. I would like to be tough to play against, is how I would hope other coaches, other players describe us when they have to play against us. So very, very just well drilled defensively. Everyone knows their role, everyone knows their job, that sort of thing. And then offensively, I tend to give the players a little bit more freedom, kind of what they want to do. Of course, I want them to feel comfortable keeping the ball at times, backing teams down if we can, kind of possession wise. But, there's going to be games I just know where there's going to be, teams I think maybe clipping some long balls, maybe running in some channels that might be more effective. And I always tell, players in our recruiting process, it's going to be mid-October. We're going to be somewhere in the Midwest. There's going to be snow, rain on the ground. The pitch is going to be,
Awful.
an awful. It's going to be muddy, and it's going to be tough to play those pretty, 6-yard passes and build your way up the field. So we might need to just be a bit more direct on the day and just find a way to win it that way. So we try to find players that are kind of versatile and kind of play kind of direct and kind of also keep the ball on the ground. Just because there's going to be games, there's going to be situations where one is probably more advantageous than the other, if that makes sense. So
yeah. Interesting. All right. Tell me about just a couple more, and I'll let you get on with the day. Tell me about your recruiting class. What does it look like? Because, well, that's a good question. Is this your recruiting class? I mean, you just got hired. So, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes guys come in and the old coach did all the recruiting, and this is the group you get. So I'm curious about your recruiting class.
Sure. No, it's a great question. So I'm looking at my board here. So we have 9 incoming players. We have 8 field players and a goalkeeper. I would say, I guess technically it's not my recruiting class because I think most of them, or at least maybe 8 of them, committed when the previous head coach was the head coach. However, I will say that all 9 players were guys that I've kind of been out to evaluate and recruit. My official title was assistant coach / recruiting coordinator. So I do have a good connection with them and their families. I think that's a huge reason why they opted to stay, because sometimes players will, decommit or follow the head coach, that sort of thing. But I think 7 of the 9 are from Illinois, and then we have a goalkeeper from Wisconsin, and then we have a defender from Kansas City, Missouri. But it's a very, very good class, very strong class. We just had 3 of the players playing in the USYS National Championship last Sunday, I believe. They unfortunately lost, but they played it this year. They played into the previous year. So we have some guys that can play, and we're really excited to see, and get them implemented into the team and just kind of, get them here August 16th and kind of see what they can do with our squad.
Yeah. That's interesting that they got, I mean, that says a lot. Look, even if you're just on the team, you'd be riding the bench, but even if you're on the team and you make a final like that, national final, I mean, that tells you that you're of at least some caliber, I think that's a big deal. All right. Last one, your first season as head coach, the fall. And don't say anything that will be like on a motivation board to your rivals. Like, what goals do you have for this fall? Knowing your season was successful in terms of, there's a lot of teams that wish they had your successes. So what goals do you have for the fall that you can share?
Yeah, I don't want to put a target on our back necessarily, but but I think it's safe to say, and the guys would agree with me, the first thing we want to do is give back to the tournament, so give back to the NCAA tournament. I think that's one of the biggest things for us. And then hopefully, when we get there, we're able to maybe win a game, make some sort of run, just to kind of, push the program in the right direction. I think the best ever finish for Platteville men's soccer was the round of 16. I think they had a 14 or 15 win season. So we kind of talked about that in the off season because we have a very ambitious group, which is good. But they understand there's a ton of work that needs to go into to get there. So we have short-term goals, we have medium-term goals, and we have long-term goals that all need to happen before we make the tournament and go on a run like that. and the guys are all aware of what those are. But it starts on August 16th, right when everyone arrives, when we get to the training ground and kind of go over things. So it's a long season, a lot can happen, and our schedule is very, very tough. We're playing some of the best teams in our region, so it's no easy task. So the old saying, and I know it's cliche, but we're going to take one day at a time and just see what happens, right?
Yeah. All right. So not the last question. Do you play? Okay. So first of all, I fully expect a win against Whitewater. I haven't even talked to the coach there, and I'm already Whitewater. Tell me about, just really quick again. Tell me about your trip to Chicago to play Willamette Williamette. I can never say it right. To play in the NCAA's, was it an eye-opening experience for some of your guys being so young, or was it, hey, business as usual? I'm curious.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I want to say it was business as usual, but I think the NCAA tournament has a bit of just more glamour, right?
Yeah.
I would say the experience was awesome. It was my first time going as well. I was never we never qualified back when I was playing at Mount, but it's a really cool experience. You're in the hotel the night before, we're doing scouting report, and I think the previous head coach even organized players that have played at Platteville in the past that made the NCAA tournament. They actually wrote letters to the guys and kind of explained or described kind of the feeling of playing, in the tournament and kind of playing for Platteville. So I think that was pretty cool. I think the anticipation, kind of the build up to it, was also fun. I think at the end of at the conclusion of our conference tournament, we were kind of like one of those bubble teams where we're like, we don't know, we have a chance to get in, we might not get in, and then we ended up obviously getting in. I think everyone was it was a huge morale boost for the guys, because I think we were kind of a little pessimistic, thinking we weren't going to get in, and we ended up getting in. So that week of training, I remember, was just fun. The guys were energetic, the guys were ready to go, and then we got there. I think we played well. I think we were bested by Willamette. I think they were the better team on the day and deserved to win, but it was a cool experience. And I think the guys now have a taste for it, right? And I have a taste for it. And now we want to get back there. We want to try again. We want to do better. So I think that's a huge motivating piece for us, kind of going into the fall here.
I know it's trite, but you need to go to the NCAA to lose to get back to win. Because that sort of propels you, right? But I'm curious, how did you think there was a big difference soccer-wise?
What the teams in the tournament?
Yeah. I'm sure you watched other games, and obviously, look, I'd say Chicago, right? I think they're just a different. They were a different level this past year, but like everybody else, do you think there was a big difference for you guys?
I think any team that makes the tournament is a good program, a good team, first and foremost. When we played Willamette, they were very good. They had a game plan. They executed very well. If we would have won that game, we would have played Chicago, who obviously won the national championship. I was able to watch a few of their games. I think I watched their game when they were in the Elite Eight, and they're very good. Like you said, they are the real deal.
Two teams last year, Chicago and Messiah, were different level.
Right, and I think also anything can happen, right? Anything can happen in the tournament. I haven't been coaching college soccer for I guess for that long, but I've been around the game forever, and I know that anything can freaking happen. So the randomness of it too. You could be the better team on the day, but doesn't mean you're going to win the game, right?
Very true.
And every team is working hard. There's seniors on teams that are fighting for their life, and I think all of that kind of mixed together makes for really fun games to watch, especially as a neutrals, which was what I was doing kind of on the back end of the tournament. But the levels of every team is good, and anyone, I think, can beat anyone at kind of that period in the season. I think that's what makes it fun, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's it. Like I always say, it's just the difference is who, to your point, again, I'm excluding Chicago and, from that, but anyone can step on the field, and it's just about execution. Can you execute your game plan and have that day, right, to win that day? Which is awesome, right? Because it's so you get such close games, and, you know, a lot of emotion and guys in. So anyhow, all right, Coach, this was fantastic. Do appreciate the time. I'll be wearing my Platteville hat proudly, and I will definitely be keeping tabs on you guys. Tell your men that there's a guy in Jersey who watches insane amount of soccer games, and so long as you're not behind a paywall, no comment. That I'll definitely be keeping tabs on you guys.
I appreciate that. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Anytime. All right. You know, one of those tools and a great starting point is to check out Discover College Soccer Study Table. Now, I've interviewed Matt Baer, who's the founder of Discover College Soccer, before. Really great guy. And you've probably seen his podcast. I've referred to it and recommend anybody to go to check out his interviews with coaches at all levels. That is specifically designed to talk about the recruiting process and the different college programs. He's not talking about them himself. He's letting the coaches speak. So with all of that information that he's gathered, you know, he's put together this study table that is a program to help you with your recruiting process that's complete with video course on the recruiting process from start to finish. He has these that are updated spreadsheets that are updated monthly, you know, with contact information and details about every program in the country. That alone is worth its weight in salt. He has a bunch of other resources, email templates, checklists to help you guide you through your own process. Now, the best part is, whereas you can pay thousands of dollars to some of these recruiting services, you can get a lifetime subscription to the study table for less than one night in a tournament hotel. You know, the best part of it is that Matt has his own soccer experience. He's a former college player and college coach. He's talked to over 150 coaches in just the last year, and he has some great insights and has created something that I think is probably very, very useful to a lot of you, and best of all, you get to save time and save money. Now look, I don't recommend people that I don't know or I haven't come to know. You know, I've talked to Matt, as I mentioned, on a number of occasions, and he's probably has the most insightful and, I'll just say, thorough understandings of the recruiting process. Not because he's made it up, but because he's asked coaches across the college game. And he's taken all of that, figured out what the best recommendations from all of those discussions that he has, and put that together into the study table. So if you don't want to spend thousands on recruiting, on a recruiting service, and you have the mind to do it yourself, the Discover College Soccer Study Table is for you. So in the description, you can find a link that will get you 20% off on a lifetime subscription. Or if you go to discovercollegesoccer.com, click on the study table to register and use the discount code SIMPLE, you get to save 20% on your subscription. So with that, good luck.